Have you ever gotten something for your home, brought it into your space, and been like really stoked, like this is a beautiful piece or item? You set it down and you look around and you think, wow, my place looks like crap. And then, as you meditate on that, you suddenly find yourself online shopping for more things that look like the new piece. Maybe a new chair or a new couch or a new painting or whatever it is that will go with the item that you just got. Well, I think a lot of us have experienced this, and if you've found yourself doing this, then you may have experienced the Diderot effect. There's an actual name for it, and the idea was first developed by a French philosopher named Denis Diderot that came up with this idea of humans wanting unity, especially in their spaces or their belongings, and if you get one new item that feels a little bit different than the others, you suddenly find yourself craving more unity in your belongings, so you go out and buy more stuff to match the new piece. And it's so true. Have you ever experienced that thing where you buy a new outfit, like a new dress or a new top, and then suddenly you're like, well, with that top, I need slightly fancier pants, or I want a whole collection of outfit options that kind of jive with that. I want my whole style to kind of work with this new piece that I really love. It happens in all areas of our lives. And I think it makes sense in that a lot of our identities are wrapped up in our belongings. We spend a lot of time in our homes and they impact how we feel. And if there's this feeling of mismatchedness, sometimes that can feel off. And believe me, I've done this about 1,000,000 times, so there's no judgment here. And I think this is just a natural human tendency. And actually, there is some research to support this idea. However, a lot of people have contended that being aware of this effect can actually help combat it. That if you're aware that when you buy something new, you might have the urge to buy other new things to kind of go with that new item, you're more likely to be free of that need to do it. And I can say, as someone who used to be a therapist and studied psychology and effective therapies, that often just bringing awareness to something on its own can make a huge impact in behavior. When you're more aware of your own motivations for something or what's happening in the moment, you can kind of take action in your own thought life or in your situation and choose a different path from what you've chosen in the past. I think a lot of people will say just don't buy the first thing at all, which honestly is a good strategy if you can get yourself to just not purchase something that's totally different from everything you have. That might be a great strategy and it might be something that's worthwhile to do. But I also think there is something worthwhile in thinking about how can we be more at peace with a little bit of tension in our lives, a little bit of happy chaos, which sounds actually like the opposite of what I usually say on this channel, that honestly having less and having a more cohesive space is always better and creates less stress. I get it, like that is something I talk about all the time, so I'm for that. But I also think it's healthy to be okay with some things not feeling perfectly serene or perfectly put together. And part of this might reflect an underlying value in accepting ourselves as being more than one thing. I feel like in life, when we're seeking out our identities or who we are, we try to create a one-dimensional version of ourselves. You might think of yourself as the nerd or the fashionista or the smart one or the person who's really into fitness or the person who's really confident, when in reality, we all can play many of those different roles at different times or even at the same time. I can tell you right now, I don't know that I'm ever going to be the super intense fitness person though. But my point is, I feel like it is healthy to just be like, I don't have to be the most this or the most that, and I can have multiple different versions of me coexisting. And even in my space, I might not have the perfectly curated style, but that's okay. And sometimes there's a beauty to that. And at the very least, even if it looks like crap and there's no beauty to it, like maybe it's just okay. Like maybe we don't have to have everything perfectly curated, because when we try to achieve that, we end up just spending a lot of our money that we don't really have to spend, and we can't put that money into more important things, more meaningful things in life. And I have to say, I keep telling myself this lately because I gotta admit, lately I've just been so overwhelmed. I feel like I just can't be everything that I want to be. And there are parts of myself that are contradicting each other. Like I feel like I'm not showing up in certain ways for friends the way I'd like, and I'm not doing all the things I'd like to do. I'm not living up to this like perfect version of myself. But that also is the reality of where I'm at right now. And I can be imperfect and I can try to work on those things. But right now I'm like in some ways in survival mode. And sometimes my stuff won't always coexist or look perfect. And that's cool. My point is, I think it's worthwhile to realize we don't have to have everything perfectly matched. It's okay to contradict ourselves both in our stuff and internally, and that is the human experience. And being aware of that, I think, is worthwhile. One other random observation I want to add at the end of this is, again, thank you all for all the support about sharing about my podcast that recently started coming out called The Turning River Road. It's about a cult, totally different from this YouTube channel, and it really dives into the experience of several people, but especially a young girl who grows up in the cult and ends up being a whistleblower, which leads to an international manhunt. It is a wild story. But anyway, I've mentioned it more here, and I appreciate the support. I've linked that again at the top of the description box if you're interested. That one's called The Turning River Road. But since I got positive feedback about sharing about my podcast, I also thought, admittedly, I'd blatantly plug one other one, which is coming out right now. We've got a couple episodes out as of this recording, though probably more once this video actually comes out, but we're coming out with more weekly. And it is a true crime podcast, which I'm hosting. It's called America's Crime Lab, and it focuses on a bunch of cases that are solved using this new cutting-edge DNA technology that's being used in this specific lab called Othram that's just outside of Houston, Texas. And basically, they're solving cases that were thought to be previously unsolvable. They're catching all these serial killers or just cases that have just been sitting there for years and years. And it is so cutting edge. I don't think very many people realize about how this technology works and how it is going to change the face of solving crime today. And people in the company say that for cases where there is good DNA evidence available, or even like mediocre quality DNA evidence available, all of those crimes could be solved within our lifetime because of this technology. I won't go more into it because this is, again, totally outside of the focus of this channel. But if you're interested in true crime stories, hearing about cases in depth and how they're solved, and also to be up to date even for conversations about true crime on this DNA technology, definitely check it out. It's called America's Crime Lab. I'm hosting, and the producer, Catherine Fenalosa, did a lot of the legwork. She tells me a lot of these cases, and I interviewed a ton of people for the podcast, and it's just a fascinating set of stories. So if you're interested, I will link that at the top of the description box as well. I have so much work just coming out right now, and the world is kind of a chaotic time. And so I weirdly feel like thinking about the Diderot effect with stuff, but then also thinking about it philosophically in how we see ourselves and our identities was somehow helpful to me today because I'm so busy. Anyway, that's about it. Let me know if you listen to either of these podcasts. Even subscribing to them is a great way to support me and the teams that I work with. So thank you for doing that if you take a moment to do that. Anyway, thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I swear I won't always be talking about my podcasts.